Is sex fun?
Me.
How much fun?
Much.
People with disabilities meet at this disco every month, start to date, and even get married. Some would like to have children, but should that choice be theirs to make?
The authorities want it both ways. They make it difficult on one hand to sterilise these children. Then these children go ahead and have these babies.
I think the biggest difficulty is when we start to, as it were, play God and decide who should be parents or who shouldn't.
Don't be upset.
This woman has the mental age of a child. Does she have the right to be a mother? Tonight, the agonising dilemma for parents of children with disabilities. Should they ever be sterilised?
I'd say to critics who would say that she shouldn't have been sterilised to walk in our shoes, to walk in Trish's shoes, to know what it's like to be her, and then maybe you would understand.
Historically, the issue of sterilisation is a very unhappy one. If one goes back to the 20s, there was a movement called Eugenics, which was a sort of a brave new world attempt to produce a better society, so-called, and that involved the rather horrifying concept that if someone had intellectual handicaps, they should be prevented from having children.
Christine, you feel very strongly about the practice of routinely sterilising the disabled continued through to the 1980s. In Christine Natras's case, it was 1968. Did you know at the time you were being sterilised?
No. Christine has an intellectual disability, so she was somebody who went to a special school. On the day of her 18th birthday, she was doing some work experience at a local school, and her father came to pick her up from school at lunchtime, which she thought was unusual, and said, "You've got to come home and pack your bags, you're going to hospital." She remembers being very frightened and not knowing what was happening to her.
When did you find out that you'd been sterilised?
After the operation was finished.
So no one told you at the time what was happening?
No.
Are you angry about that?
Yep.
I think that it was deemed that if she did have children, she would be unable to look after them.
Do you like children?
Yep.
What happens when you see other people nursing children?
I get a little bit upset kind of thing.
Why do you get upset?
Because I wish they were mine.
Can you get it, Doc?
Yep.
26-year-old Annette Kalkman has cerebral palsy, a condition that leaves sufferers with no intellectual impairment, but with severe difficulty controlling movement. It is not genetic.
I had a hysterectomy.
How old were you when you had a full hysterectomy?
14.
Did you have a choice as to whether you had a hysterectomy?
No.
Who made that decision?
My mom and dad.
Why did they make that decision?
Because they didn't want me to have a tape bed.
Those embryos, the cells of those embryos become every cell in your body. They don't come from anywhere else.
In recent years, passionate and well-educated advocates from the disability movement have lobbied against sterilisations. Dr. Tom Shakespeare is a British expert in bioethics.
Clearly, there are medical consequences, and that's why people should be able to consent for themselves. So they should be able to wait till they're 18. Why sterilise a child?
Another advocate is Frances Vickery, who has cerebral palsy. She also has a Master's of Letters and an English Literature degree specialising in Greek translation.
It's about how I think. I really don't like the idea, and I object wholeheartedly to anyone else making choices about a woman's body, because I think even women with disabilities have the ability to know what's going on in their body.
Why should a woman with a disability not be sterilised?
Because it takes their choice away.
It takes their choice away? What choice is that?
Having kids.
Looking back now, how does that make you feel, the fact that you've had a hysterectomy?
Angry.
Why?
Because I want to experience a period.
Okay.
We know that there are huge emotional consequences. People feel violated. They feel that they're not a real woman. These are the things that people have told us when they've spoken about their experiences. They feel very alienated from other women. They have difficulty establishing relationships with men. So, the consequences are enormous.
What would you say to people, to parents out there who are thinking of sterilising their children?
Stop and think about it.
Can we go for a walk, just a little walk outside?
In 1992, a High Court ruling determined that no parent had the right to decide to sterilise their child. Since that ruling, a decision can only be made by the family court or a guardianship tribunal.
Trisha's would be about a 3-year-old level with some issues, maybe a little bit higher in others. With the hygiene side of it is a major issue here. And the fact with her period, she'd be saying to me, I'm bleeding, Dad, I'm bleeding, and she was afraid and of course couldn't understand it, wasn't able to handle when she got her period.
Trishy would leave sanitary napkins all around the place. Could be in the bathroom, could be up the hallway, in the laundry.
I tried to get medical help in that area and I couldn't, and I eventually went to see my orthopaedic specialist, and he said that he knew of a doctor who might be able to help me. When I took Trishy to this specialist at a Sydney hospital, he said that she could have her tubes just cut and tied and that would prevent any pregnancy. But he said with this heavy period there's not a lot we can do. He said, why don't you go home and talk to your husband and your family and think about a hysterectomy.
I thought, well, if ever she was ever to fall pregnant, we thought that it would kill her because of her gross abnormalities.
Trisha's disabilities include a heart defect, chronic scoliosis, and a severe intellectual disability. She was secretly sterilised in hospital. The operation was not yet found to be illegal, but hysterectomies on teenagers were becoming publicly unacceptable. Doctors also feared litigation in the future from the children they sterilised.
The doctor booked Trish into hospital under my mother's name, and I know